Hello HEMA friends! Today I want to talk with you about the fencing convention, or the right of way. The right of way is a rule which is used in the weapons of foil and saber. Of course, we are talking about modern fencing, but in these days the right of way starts to be used also in HEMA tournaments, and this is why I want to talk about it. Especially, I want to talk about the right of the way as a training tool and as a rule for tournaments. I want to talk about what it's trying to achieve and what it wanted to achieve in the past as a training tool and as a rule. I have tried to search around for the history of the right of way, but it is not really easy to find information about these rules in the past. What we can say is that the right of way as a rule for modern fencing is born when the FIE related the first manual for the fencing competitions. But of course, the history of the right of way seems to be longer than this. It seems that its roots are founded in the first competition that were made for the pleasure of Louis XIV in France during the 17th century. During the 18th century and the 19th century, we start to see this rule used as a training tool to better understand the concept of initiative and especially to better manage the change of initiative during a fight. So, in the end, what this rule is about? It is quite simple. All rotates around the concept of priority. You have the priority when you start an attack motion. Hey, but Federico, when we can understand when you start an attack motion? Well, it is quite simple. You have to threaten the part that you want to hit with the tip of your sword, and at the same time you have to extend your arm. That means that you are starting an attack motion. There is also a number of side rules to help you judge if the attack is started when you do composite action, like for example feint and attack, or you use a different way of moving than the simple lunge or the flash. You can do for example step and lunge, and if you straighten the arm before the end of the first step, you are starting the attack in a correct way, for example. But in modern fencing, sadly, it is not that simple, and this is because the flut exists as an action. If you don't know, the flut is simply an action which is meant to bend your own weapon so you can hit the opponent from different direction than the standard one. To make you an easy example of the flut, just pick up your sword, your training sword, and try to hit someone or something with your flat. If you stop your action before hitting the opponent, you see that the point of your sword is bending in the direction of the opponent, of course. Now, this is a flut. If you think about it in a weapon which is very flexible, like the foil, this flut can become very, very extreme, and you can hit even the back of your opponent by standing in front of him. So, because of the flut, judging when you are threatening the opponent, it is not that easy. Even if you don't have the point online toward the opponent, you can threaten him because of this. So, the judges had to make some compromise. In some situation, even if you have the tip which is straight toward the ground, you can start a flut. And so, in some ways, you are threatening your opponent. But let's get back to our rules. So, to simplify you the thing, if you are threatening your opponent, you have the initiative, so you gain the right of way, so you can hit your opponent. Now, the opponent, if he does everything correctly, he can do a parry and riposte. So, he parry, he make contact with the sword, he do a riposte, and then he have the initiative. He can do an action on tempo, in Italian is uscita in tempo, so avoiding the attack and hitting you at the same time, or doing an action on your blade, so parrying and hitting you at the same time. These are two basic examples. Or, of course, he can avoid the attack and then attack you. If you think about these rules as training rules, this becomes interesting. You can use this kind of rules to teach yourself or a student a better understanding of the change of initiative. So it would be more easy to not hit the other person in the meantime that he is hitting you in some situation. Of course, this not nullify the possibility of a double hit, but it helps to have lesser double hits during the fight. Of course, this happens because sometimes people like to rely on rules to understand something. If you have a rules and you stick to it, and you know that you will achieve some kind of goal by sticking to the rule, it is more easy for some kind of people to achieve some kind of goal. In this specific situation, the goal is trying to learn a better understanding of the change of initiative. Learning about the change of initiative means that you better understand which is the time to parry and to defend yourself, and which is the time to attack the opponent. This means that you can learn to better defend yourself. So in the end, learning the initiative is a very important thing. The idea of the right of way as a rule for tournaments is probably born because this rule was very good at decreasing the double hits during the training bouts, and of course teaching the change of initiative. So probably someone thinked maybe we can test it also in the tournament environment and use it to decrease the number of double hits and to make the fencing more realistic and more beautiful to watch. But this rule, as any other one, can be strategized, and so the idea that was tried to being achieved with the use of this rule changed and become something different, and so created a different result in the end. The first distortion that we can easily see is related to the foil and the flut that we have seen before. Of course, this is also related to the training weapon. The second distortion, which is easy to see, is in the saber fencing, and this is related to the time of the scoring apparatus to register the hit and the simultaneous hit. These create a number of double hits at the beginning of the assault because fencer try to take the initiative as fast as possible, and so a number of simultaneous attacks starts, and of course people try to gain the initiative as fast as possible to score as fast as possible with a simple attack. So this creates a number of simultaneous hits, but at the same time, sometimes it pays and make one of the fencers score. Now this is slightly changed in 2016 when the FIA changed the time of the scoring apparatus to register the hits and of course the simultaneous hits from 120 milliseconds to 170. So this means that after one hit there is a time space of 170 milliseconds in which the opponent can score a hit, and this hit will be considered a simultaneous hit, which will invalidate both the hits. But is this really a problem for modern fencing? In fact, it is not. Simply because modern fencing doesn't try to replicate an actual fight. It is only trying to create a sport, which is fun to do, entertaining, and interesting to watch when it is possible. So this is the goal that modern fencing have, because things are changed during the time, and fencing have changed its goals from being a training tool for duelists or soldiers to being a sport which should be enjoyable, entertaining, and that's it. Now the only problem sometimes, because some rule is changed, is because some aspect of one of the three weapons becomes boring. One of the examples is the continuous first intention assault in the saber that we have mentioned before. Some other times the problem is related to judges and judging the boats, so some rules is changed because of this, but there is no other motivation to change rules in modern fencing. This is slightly different in HEMA. Now, in theory, the HEMA tournament should be some kind of training for an hypothetical duel. Now, it is almost impossible to replicate a duel into a tournament, and this is simply because there is always something which is missing, or there is something which is unrealistic, always connected with the rule set. Now, it is impossible to create a rule set which is perfect and replicate a real fight. As I said before, there is always something different. Now, sometimes people doesn't stop after being hit for the first time, and this is only one example, but a major one. Now, the right of way is just part of one of these rule sets, which are made to replicate some aspect of a fight. You can learn something from it, or you can strategize it to achieve your own goal, but this doesn't change the fact that it is nothing worse or better than any other rule set. You can use it in whatever way you want, and you can train in whatever way you want during the tournament. If your goal is, of course, winning the tournament at any cost, you should strategize the right of the way, as you see in the saber or in the foil. Now, this is not a problem, simply because not anyone have the same goal from its own fencing. So, my advices for you are: try to use the right of way in your training sometime, to see if it helps to better understand the change of initiative. If you find a tournament which uses right of way, try it, because it is interesting to try new rule sets, and try to achieve your own goal by doing it. So, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video will help you. Thanks to my patrons too that support me every time. Remember, if you want to support me too, just give a look to the video description and you will find the link to my Patreon page. Again, thanks for watching, and see you next time.